Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Some not so encouraging news from boxing insider Rick Glacier, who says, don't be surprised if Canelo doesn't fight on May 4th. And when he does fight, it won't be against Jermall Charlo. The severity of the PBC's financial problems are the cause for those issues. Don't be surprised if it's Jaime Munguia and Terence Crawford that Canelo fights this year.
So often when bad news is reported in reference to the PBC, there are those out there who regularly take offense, claiming that, oh, we're all just hating, we're just haters.
For the better portion of what was a 5-year deal, that's what I was called for stating what seemed obvious to me.
What?
That if Stephen Espinoza and Al Heyman didn't turn those declining metrics on Showtime around, their time there would come to an end.
I said it more than once. I said it on repeat. I said it ad nauseum, not just in reference to Showtime, but in reference to Fox too. And for that, I was called a hater. I was called out of my name. Though in the end, look what happened.
Some who still refuse to accept that Al Heyman is not the financial wizard that he's made out to be, and currently the PBC are very much on unstable ground, and this Amazon deal isn't what some people thought it was in the beginning, though it's sounding more and more like the deal is what I thought it was.
What?
Little more than just a distribution deal with no financial commitment from Amazon to the PBC, which now jeopardizes their existing agreement with Canelo. Before I speculated that if Amazon isn't providing the PBC with a budget, then how are they going to provide guarantees to the fighters? Moreover, how will they provide Canelo's guarantee to keep him on board? If they can't, does that constitute a contract breach?
If they can't hold up their end of the bargain, then why the fuck would he stay there? What you have to remember is when he entered into that deal last year, the PBC were in bed with Showtime.
People at the PBC must have thought, or at minimum must have hoped, that the people at Showtime would extend their deal, that their existing relationship would carry over into this year, that they would renew.
Nope.
But they didn't.
Nope.
They got the boot towards year's end, and now they're scrambling. Rick Glacier continued, the deep financial turmoil PBC is in, the May 4th Canelo date, it's now in question if it's even going to happen. Several boxing executives I have talked to in the last 24 hours are aware that Canelo is demanding his guarantee of approximately $35 million to be placed in an escrow account upon signing the bout contract. That's not a good sign. PBC has serious issues. Realize and recognize.
2 champions have already jumped ship at the PBC. Ray Vargas, WBC featherweight champion, and Subriel Matias, IBF super lightweight champion. Could Canelo Alvarez, the current reigning undisputed super middleweight champion, be the next one to jump ship?
That's not an encouraging omen. If it were all sunshine and rainbows over there, the way some people would have you believe, then why would those 2 champions have jumped ship? And why would these rumors about Canelo be making the rounds? When I told you that the PBC are now operating at a much reduced capacity, you know, back in 2022, from January into March, they had about 6 cards, 6 shows.
That was in 2022.
In 2023, they did about 5 shows. Across that same window, that same time frame, from January into March, they did about 5 shows. Whereas this year, they've only announced 1 show. From January into March, the PBC is only doing 1 show.
What used to be in question was the quality of the fights and the caliber of the show, the caliber of the shows. Now what's in question is whether or not they're going to do shows at all.
And even now, there are still a few Haymanites who doubt the gravity of the situation that Rick Glacier is describing. What now lends credence to the notion that there's trouble in paradise over there and that Canelo may be leaving is ESPN's Chava is reporting Canelo Alvarez and Jaime Munguia have re-entered talks for what could be a May fight date.
In tandem with the rumor that the PBC don't have the money to guarantee this guy, and he's now re-entered talks to fight a non-PBC fighter in May. Not Jermall Charlo, like some previously thought.
Not one of those PBC scrubs, but a guy who fights on the DAZN side of things. You remember DAZN. Canelo fought there for some years, some fights.
You don't have to question whether or not Canelo Alvarez has the kind of autonomy that could see him leaving the PBC. He's quite literally the highest paid boxer in the sport. If anybody has the autonomy to do that, it's him. On the premise that these guys can't guarantee him his money, so he's gonna skate. He's gonna go.
Rumor has it Eddie Hearn has made Gervonta Davis a sizable offer to come over to their side of things and box Conor Benn. At the same time, rumor has it that Canelo may be leaving. You think all these rumors are circulating at this time for no reason? Do you think all of that is a coincidence? And is it a coincidence that for the first 3 months of this year, the PBC have only announced one show? Just one show.
It's all a coincidence.
Gotta wake up and smell the mediocrity. You might be able to pull that crap with all those guys fighting in late March, but Canelo Alvarez is not the kind of guy you can pay with an IOU.
We're in February now.
2 months into this year, and they've only rolled out one show. According to former Showtime Sports executive Stefan Espinoza, they still want to pair up with another network for a more traditional relationship, a more traditional network. How does all of that sound to you?
I don't mind Canelo Alvarez versus Jaime Munguia in May.
Boxer puncher versus pressure fighter is usually a very fun stylistic matchup, especially if it involves two Mexican nationals. That's sure to draw a crowd.
But what about David?
David is one of Heyman's boys. What do you want me to say? I don't even know if he has the autonomy to go anywhere else. Might go down with the ship or wait in limbo for Heyman to sort things out.
Is this the man that you're saying called Terrence? Just to be clear, because there's a lot of princes and sheiks out there, but this is
listen.
Just take a look at it. Just take a look at it. Maybe you.
Listen. Okay. I'm looking at what you're saying, but listen. I don't know what the man looked like. All I know, when I was with Bud in the gym the other day, he told me that they called him directly. That's just what he told me. He didn't say I couldn't tell nobody. He didn't say no. He told me that they called me directly. That's what he told me. He said they called me directly. They don't call nobody else. They called me directly. So they didn't mention. They didn't say. They didn't mention Boots.
All right, what did they mention? Come on, you know that. I see your smile. You showed me the tooth.
They want Canelo.
That is Bernie the Boxer, longtime friend of Terrence Crawford, who in so many words says the Saudis have reached out to Terrence directly and they want to bankroll the Canelo Alvarez fight, which lends credence to the notion that what Rick Glacier is saying is true. This year, Canelo may fight Jaime Munguia in May, then Terrence Crawford later on in the year.
The catalyst being the PBC's inability to hold up their end of the bargain and provide Canelo Alvarez with his guaranteed cash, his guaranteed money.
They ain't got it, but somebody else does. Canelo Alvarez versus Jaime Munguia the week of Cinco de Mayo will put a lot of asses in a lot of seats, whether you like it or not, whether you think Jaime is good or not. Two Mexican nationals going at it the week of Cinco de Mayo sells a lot of pay-per-views. And if you follow that up with a Terrence Crawford fight, I think that fight does close to 1 million, if not in excess of 1 million. It's a fight that captures the imagination and that brings two separate demographics to the table to see who would win.
Bernie said they didn't mention Boots.
Why would they? He's not a big name. Do you think that because the IBF emailed him a version of their title, that makes him a big draw or a big ticket seller? I told you. Whatever you think about this guy, however good you think he is or he's going to be, or how good he isn't, he's not known.
A fight between him and Terrence isn't that big.
Spite of the efforts of a few YouTubers who want to sell you a dream about Jaron Boots Ennis, a similar dream to the one they sold you about Errol Spence Jr., he's not known, he's not a big ticket seller, and there are bigger fights out there. There's bigger fish to fry for Terrence than a guy whose biggest win is Roman Villa. So give it a rest and give me a break.
So if the PBC is in dire financial straits, what happens to Boots? What happens to David Benavidez? What happens to the rest of those fighters?
I don't know.
I don't.
Maybe they go down with the ship. Maybe they wait in limbo for several months for Al Heyman to sort this out and get them some fight dates. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. Maybe they decide to go elsewhere If they can, if they have the autonomy to do it, to go to a match room,
Yeah.
a top rank,
Yeah.
a Golden Boy. Hey, David Benavidez could do well for himself over there at Golden Boy Promotions. David Benavidez is promoted by Samson Lukowicz. Samson Lukowicz recently funneled his female fighter, Gabriela Fundora, over there to Golden Boy. They're both co-promoting her now. If David has the autonomy, maybe he can go over there.
I don't know. I don't care either.
To be perfectly honest with you, I am less and less concerned with what happens to the PBC's remaining stable of fighters. They were never that active anyway. The show must go on, and for Canelo, it looks like it's going to. Looks like he might fight Jaime in May and Terrence, presumably, in September. And those are two very big fights.
So on the premise that he fights those two guys, he doesn't fight David Benavidez at any point this year, do you think the WBC will strip him?
I'm not convinced. I'm not sure. The same PBC that allowed Jermall Charlo to hang on to their title, having not fought for 2.5 years, the same WBC that after that 2.5 years saw him come back as a super middleweight and still didn't strip him, even though he had a mandatory challenger in the queue.
After all the consideration they gave him, you'd rely on them to strip Canelo.
To take the belt from Canelo, to give it to David, who may be on the shelf for an undisclosed amount of time due to the PBC's dire financial straits. Yeah, I don't know how much I believe that.
Sorry.
Canelo potentially fighting Jaime Munguia in May means a potential return to the DAZN platform where perhaps, and I'm just bouncing ideas around, Eddie Hearn and Matchroom may go back to representing him. As far as Terrence Crawford and a potential fight with him for Canelo, I'm going to assume that would also happen on DAZN. If it's the Saudis that are bankrolling the show, they're the ones who got in contact with him. What distributor are they using? They're using DAZN as the distributor for these big fights they're doing.
Mostly.
Joshua versus Valine, Joshua versus Ngannou, Fury versus Usyk. The distributor of these shows, it is DAZN. So you have to assume that if Canelo versus Crawford becomes a reality as a result of the Saudis bankrolling it, it would be DAZN that distributes that pay-per-view, and given what shows they've already announced, some that are very big, this could be a very big year for them.
And a catastrophic year for the PBC. I mean, you've already got a lot of fighters leaving. If you lose the Canelo Alvarez account, if he ends up jumping ship, what have you got?
Well, Terrence Crawford gets back to grafting, sparring 16-0 super middleweight Lester Martinez. Gee, I wonder what he's getting ready to do. I wonder what he's preparing for. Sparring super middleweights, are we? These are very exciting times, and this is very exciting news. Very exciting if you're a boxing fan, but not that exciting if you're a Haymanite. Not if you're a big fan of the PBC. And finally, in men's heavyweight news, Timothy Bradley says, Joshua, do what you're supposed to do. Show these MMA guys how we do it. Timothy Bradley addressing the obvious rivalry between mixed martial artists and boxers, and how mixed martial artists are locked into this pissing contest with boxers trying to prove that their discipline is superior.
That's the argument that their fans like to make. Their fighters, I think for their fighters, it's all about making a quick buck. It's seldom ever a conservative effort to really make it in the sport of boxing. It's usually just the one-off, just the quick payday.
Because when a Tyrone Woodley or a Ben Askren goes in there with a Jake Paul, I hardly think it's because they're really trying to make it as boxers.
They're just making a quick buck. With Francis, however, it is a little different. It seems like a more earnest effort while making a lot of money.
And what Timothy Bradley wants is for AJ to send him packing, to send him a message. He's going to take this fight seriously, said Bradley on Pro Box TV. He's going to show everybody how you're supposed to take out a guy like Francis Ngannou. The MMA UFC community has gotten more and more brazen over the years. Conor McGregor made crossover fights possible, and now Ngannou has taken things to another level. There have also been a handful of other cage fighters, including Sean O'Malley, calling for matchups against some of boxing's biggest stars. For Timothy Bradley, things are simple. He doesn't want to see Joshua in a hirsute situation against Ngannou. Simply put, he needs to send a message, one that screams about the superiority of boxers in the ring. Joshua, go in there and do what you're supposed to do. Show these MMA UFC guys how we do it. And in this situation, I honestly feel like less is more. You just stick to the basics. The basic fundamentals you've become acquainted with over the years, the basic fundamentals that are ingrained into your muscle memory in all the ways they're not ingrained into Francis Ngannou, because he's still only just trying things out. He's only fought under the hot lights once. Even if he's made a conservative effort behind the scenes to acquaint himself with the sport of boxing, there's only so much experience you can gain in a gym setting. Francis Ngannou addressed that air of spontaneity, saying, "We don't know the strength of Anthony Joshua, but even though I don't believe he has that strength, we're going to find out in 2 months. We're going to find out. And I think the reverse is going to happen. I'm going to be the one taking his soul."
Anthony recently made some comments in reference to the match. He took a more reserved approach.
He brings 2 arms, a body, like every fighter does, but it's just his mind that's different to everyone. In many ways, it has to be for a fighter Francis's age. What is he, 37 years old? To be trying his hand at boxing, he's not to be underestimated. He's not to be looked past. And I think Anthony understands that. Ben Davison understands that. Though in this situation, less is more. The basic fundamentals, using the jab to manage the distance and measure your approach, to set up your power shots and stay on balance. You don't get cute with the guy like Tyson Fury tried to get cute with the guy.
You respect him beforehand. You give him that respect to take him seriously, so when it's fight night,
The hard part is over, and the work is, in essence, already done. You've just got to show it. And when they do, I anticipate that Joshua versus Ngannou will sell more than Fury versus Ngannou. That commercially, this is a bigger fight, because now there's actually a precedence for it. Now there's an air of intrigue. Before, it was just a circus fight.
here you have another MMA fighter who shouldn't be in a boxing ring trying to grab a quick payday. Who knew that the guy could actually handle himself, that he can actually box? That's what lends itself to this fight's profile.
Francis's element of surprise has all but dissipated. Now that people know he's not fucking around and he means business and you can't look past him, that will lend itself to Anthony's preparation. Doesn't need to go in there looking to make a statement in order to make one, the same way he doesn't need to go in there looking for a knockout for the knockout to come. You've just got to let the basic fundamentals do what they do for you, so you break him down, then take him out late.
Basic fundamentals, sticking to your jab, using it, setting up your power shots.
Keep it simple, stupid. That's how you do it.